Serious tattoo artists. What was your worst mistake and how did the client react? Attention. Serious tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. https://www.reddit.com/r/askreddit/wiki/index/wiki. Rule 6. In any comment, parent or child, parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I'm a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit /message/compose/to=r/askreddit if you have any questions or concerns. So I didn't mess up, but I had a client scare me. I was tattooing his sister's name on him. She passed away. Gabriela with one L in it. Past the point of no return he asks me there's 2 L's. Right? I think I had a heart attack. And he started laughing. He thought it was hilarious. I died a little and pretended to laugh. I tattooed Philippines 413 instead of Philippians 413 on a girl one time. Fortunately I was able to fix it though. I had a client who decided he wanted lettering on his forearms. Sayings in Greek and Hebrew. He doesn't speak either language. But he had one of his friends double check the spelling before he sent the references to me. Came in. We did the tattoos. Pretty simple appointment. Fast forward to a couple weeks later. I get a message from my client about the tattoo that was done in Hebrew. He owns a small construction/restoration company and has a few Israeli guys who work for him. Apparently, they were giving him a lot of shit for his Hebrew tattoo. He originally thought they were just messing with him because it was spelled wrong. The font he had chosen off a quick Google search essentially changed a couple of the letters, kinda like the difference between an F and a T, making it a completely different word. We ended up being able to fix it pretty easily and had a good laugh about it. But definitely beware when you're getting tattoos in a language you and your artist don't speak. A few years ago I was tattooing a client who had apparently lost a bet. His buddies were allowed to tattoo something behind his shoulder as long as it wasn't racist or offensive. Turns out the guy drew up a design of a leprechaun throwing up on a book. Sure. Why not? Everyone was sober and they were paying pounds up front. Easy work. The drawing was really simple and the shading was easier than I thought it'd be. Turns out everyone liked it. Except the guy with the tattoo of a leprechaun throwing up on a book. He picked at the scab, trying to get rid of it. Completely took it from bad to worse. Comes in about 10 days later. Demanding a refund of money he didn't pay or the studio. Not me. Cover it up. Nope. Management said you signed for it in your right mind and then damaged it yourself. Personally I was yelled at and told never to tattoo anyone like that. It only works in television series or film. Did I make a mistake? Yes and no. The lesson here is, don't get involved in others' drama when permanent body marking are involved. My only spelling mistake ever was in Italian. Girl wants a phrase in Italian. She writes it down no less than 5x on a paper. I tell her to make sure it is correct. I don't speak Italian. She insists it is correct. I draw up some nice script. Tattoo it with no issues. Bandage. Pay and she leaves. She comes back in hysterical and tells me I spelled it wrong. I hadn't thrown out the paper. I spelled it exactly how she spelled it. I asked what she wanted to do. And she decided ain't no one I know speaks Italian. That was about 15 years ago. I often wonder if she ended up getting it covered up. Worked as a piercer in a shop a decade ago. A guy came in and wanted Murphy's Law. The artist free-handed a design on him. He greenlit it after watching in the mirror and they did a beautiful piece with a banner saying Murphy's Law. Seemed fitting. The guy loved the fact that his one messed up tattoo was the Murphy's Law one. Edit. Some people have pointed out the lack of apostrophe in the spelling. This took place in a small Swedish town and 100% there was no apostrophe. Swedes are generally decent at English. but apostrophe to indicate ownership is probably the part we suck most at. I was working at a place when a guy came in for a full back piece of 3 different cars. It took like 4 visits to finish, and each visit he'd look at it and say it looks awesome, and then he would take off. On the last visit, they call me in to look at it to show me how awesome it turned out. Well, all the steering wheels were on the wrong side, and the reason no one caught it was because a dude was looking in a mirror to check his progress, so they looked correct. I'm pretty sure the guy was super chill about it when they offered a bunch of free work and they fixed it in another session. I was a receptionist at a tattoo shop. One of the artists misspelled neighborhood on this guy's neck. He spelled it neighborhood, leaving out the first H. Neighborhood was the guy's nickname. It was a pretty large, elaborate tattoo, so there was no fixing it. I don't think I have ever cringed so hard in my life. The guy was surprisingly really cool about it. He did see the drawing and approved it before it was tattooed on. He ended up making the artist tattoo a H on his palm, so if anyone gave him shit about the misspelling, he could smack that person with the missing H. Apprentice here. Nothing major but bad karma on one tattoo from the get-go that absolutely flawed my confidence for a bit. Only recently did my first ever small tattoo on a client. Had to do a small range of flash ideas that I felt comfortable with. Had my mentor, who, judging by some other stories, I'm very lucky to have, has a sound dude, discuss with me beforehand my needle choices, placement technique, usual bits, and was ready to go. Every felt ready. Midway through, my machine goes, it's brand new. My only one. Managed to sort it without much fuss. In doing so, in my panic, put the wrong needle size in the machine when it came to replacing it with a fresh one. Botched a line when I realize almost immediately the size difference. Change again. Nerves are shot. Back at it. Brand new foot pedal breaks. Replace it with an old one from my mentor. It breaks too. Power pack dies. That was brand new too. Panic. Spill my ink. Practically had a meltdown in my brain about what has happened. Carried on with another artist's equipment, apologizing as calmly as I can to my client. Mentor calmed my nerves and I ended up pulling it out the bag and doing a job I was happy with somehow, but most importantly, the client loved it. Anyway, not a crazy bad story, but as an apprentice who's also a fairly confident dude, I have never felt so absolutely flawed in my life. Tattooing someone is monumentally stressful when all doesn't go to plan. I can't wait to do more and progress. But fuck me, what a time for shit to happen. My mentor helped me sort all my gear afterward and was super cool, sat with me and said something like, well, of all the times and all the things that cold gone wrong, that was the absolutely perfect one for them. Nerve-wracking stuff. I had a client email me asking for a 4-letter acronym. I don't do freehand script, so I put the letters into a font generator and sent him back some options. He picked the one he liked best and we set an appointment date. On the day of his session, I showed him the acronym again and we chose a size. I placed the stencil and he approved it and I got started. Midway through the tattoo I asked him what the letters stood for and he told me. My heart stopped. The letters were in the wrong order. The middle 2 were swapped. I ran to the shop computer to check my email and sure enough, in his original email he'd sent me, they'd been correct. I had typed them into the font generator wrong. But to be fair, he had seen them several times since then and didn't notice my mistake. I spent the rest of the session covering them up with another design he'd had as a backup tattoo idea and I didn't charge him. But it was a good learning experience for me to always ask what initials/acronyms stand for ahead of time to make sure I get them in the right order. Edit. Thank you for all the awards and upvotes. It makes me feel slightly less inclined to puke with embarrassment every time I think about that day. Also, I originally wrote initials, but I think what I meant was acronyms, so I went through and corrected my comment and also clarified which letters I mixed up. I was working at a shop in New York City. This very heavy-set gentleman came in and wanted a full back piece. No other tattoos. The design was very elaborate and quite good. Once it was all approved, the tattoo stencil was applied and again approved by the client. I wasn't doing the tattoo, but I was occasionally checking in on the process. Once the line work was done as shading had begun, I noticed something horrible. The stencil was applied over his rolls of skin on his lower back. I made a comment to the artist privately. He went back to tattooing, moved the skin apart at one point, and without a doubt several inches of untattooed skin. The client never noticed. I stopped working there not too long after that. Not for this reason. I've always felt so bad for that guy. I gave a guy a tattoo in prison of his girlfriend's name on his arm. I knew him on the street and his girl, and knew it was going nowhere, and insisted he change his mind. He didn't. So I made a bet with him that shit was gonna go belly up within 6 months. When we got out of segregation and back onto the yard a few weeks passed at most, and I can see him having a bad conversation on the phone. He called me over to his cell and offered me up a huge fucking sack of commissary without a word. I didn't take it. Figured he needed it more than me. Still feel like shit to this day. Edit. I thought I was gonna get dragged, but you motherfuckers are supportive as hell. Living out here is fucking hard, and every time I go to bed I dream about being inside again. I saw a psychologist like 2 weeks ago, and she said I'm showing classic signs of PTSD and institutionalization. I keep putting off my follow-up appointments, but I'm gonna reschedule. Thank you all. My ex did a large scarification on the client's abdomen. The client had brought in a piece of paper with the stylized word perseverance. I was invited in midway to see the progress and had to tap my ex on the shoulder for a spelling lesson. I was doing a big old tattoo of Cringer, aka Battlecat, on a really cool client's leg. I got so into doing this big, awesome tiger head that I forgot that it wasn't a goddamn tiger and colored the stripes black. I realized about a third of the way through filling them in and let the guy know. He was disappointed, but mostly okay with it. I felt like I was going to puke. I finished the thing feeling so fucking sick and then refused payment. Man. Going from that feeling of elation to immediate crushing disappointment was hard to shake and kind of dazed me. It was extra crushing because it was a fun tattoo during a time when I wasn't that busy and was doing mostly absolute dreck. The payment was just the icing on the top. So letting that go was hard too. Ugh. Just thinking about it now is making me feel sick. I got a tat from an apprentice once, and the process was rough. I was his 4th customer, and he had a mentor guiding him. By guiding I mean roasting everything he was doing. It was a fairly simple Sailor Jerry pinup, maybe 3 colors. The guide made him use 6 colors. Like the skin color on it is skin colored ink. It took 5 hours. The whole time the guide is saying stuff like, why the FCK did you pick that color next? Or no. 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 Don't do that, you'll FCK up his arm forever. The artist was a friend, and I was really feeling for him, but also myself cause my arm felt like ground hamburger by the end. 10-ish years later and it still looks awesome. He did a great job, and went on to be a respected tattoo artist in the area. All's well that ends well, but I was nervous AF while it healed to see what it would look like. Tattoo artist here. Best case I ever saw. A guy came into our shop asking about a cover up. The tattoo wasn't done at our place. He had what we call a belly rocker. One of those lettering tattoos that arcs over the belly. Think Tommy Lee's Mayhem tattoo. Usually gothic font, gangster type piece. He had beautifully executed, bold, black, Old English letters across his belly that were supposed to read, "Scarred for life." Whoever did the tattoo, as well as the tattooed guy, had forgotten one of the letters. An R. This guy came in with "Scared for life" on his belly. We showed him some cover-up options, including full torso, Japanese-style bodysuit stuff. Someone may have joked about doing the old proofreading trick of just putting a little red arrow and adding the missing letter. I don't know who did the thing, but never saw him again after giving cost estimates for the giant cover-up 15 or so years ago. We still joke about this one. Once had a client call the shop who was crying hysterically because, according to her, I had done her tattoo backwards. It took a few minutes to get her to calm down to the point where we realized she was looking at it in the mirror. She apologized and hung up. Edit, thanks for the upvotes and awards. You're all too kind. Second edit, the tattoo was on her back when I placed the stencil and finished the tattoo. The client was using 2 mirrors. A handheld one. And the wall mounted one. Using 2 mirrors. It looked correct, which it was. When she looked in just one mirror at home, it appeared backwards. The way a mirror works. I've never really made any big mistakes that garnered a reaction. But one of my clients has a tattoo from another artist in a local studio that says Graddad instead of Grandad. The studio fired the artist and wouldn't take any responsibility for what had happened. When I was but a wee baby piercer, I worked at the biggest shop in my city, which had 14 artists and 2 piercers. It was the peak of the tramp stamp trend. I'm still so sad that was the nickname. Sandler's was so much better, so when a super tiny 18-year-old black woman came in and wanted her name on her lower back with a flower, it was just normal. An older white male tattoo artist took her to pick a font. It took a minute, even though back then everyone went with Edwardian, but they came out. I had her do paperwork, and he got the drawing finished. She okayed the design. She okayed the stencil. She sat for the tattoo. Loved it. Tipped him and left. 2 hours later she called back sobbing saying we ruined her life. The counter girl told her to come in, and we would fix whatever was wrong. Tattoo comes back with her 2 gigantic, angry AF friends who are ready to freak out. We finally see the tattoo. Her name was Whitney. The N got left out in the font process. So huge across her lower back it said Witty. It was covered for free, and with many apologies with 3 giant purple roses. The tattoo artist was so fucked up over that he didn't come in for a week. It was an honest mistake, but it was the worst fucking spelling error I've seen.